Hi, I'm Stuart. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back. Thanks for viewing my video. In this video I'm going to give my reading wrap up from 1/19/2025 to 1/25/2025. I didn't complete any books, so I don't have any reviews. I read parts of 4 books, so I'm going to talk briefly about those 4 books. I got 2 new books, so I'm going to show those books and talk briefly about those 2 books. I'm going to show and talk about a couple of Wobbles I'm working on, and maybe some other updates in my life. First book I read part of this week is Paranesi by Susanna Clark. I'm 90% through this book. Very interesting book. There's a lot of interweaving parts of this book, and things are gradually revealed about what is happening. The second book I read part of this week is Boulder by Eva Baltasar. I'm 88% through this book. This book is a sapphic romance, and it's kind of a messy romance. I am quite enjoying it. Both Piranesi and Boulder I'm sure I'll be through sometime this week, perhaps even today, so I will have reviews for those 2 books in my next video. The third book I read part of this week is Iron Flame by Rebacca Yarros. I'm 58% through this book. Part of this book I'm on right now is very thrilling. Stuff is really happening in it. There's a lot of tense moments. Quite enjoying it. And I did start one book this week, Ghost Station by S.A. Barnes. I'm 9% through this book. Unfortunately, as I bought it from Libby and I didn't get very far, and I have to return it a little later today. But this is a science fiction book, which I don't read that much of anymore. I'm actually struggling greatly with books I borrowed from Libby and Hoopla lately. I don't know why. I just don't get to them in time and end up having to return them. For most people, the 21 days they give you will be perfectly fine, but for a person like me who reads, who flits here and there, an emotional reader, I'm just having trouble getting the books done in the 21 days. I didn't read so much this month, just as I didn't read that much in December. I'm not in a slump. I'm enjoying the books that I'm reading, but I'm still struggling to find the balance I talked about in several videos between watching booktuber videos and other stuff in my life and my reading. I really haven't found a good balance yet. I should have mentioned too that Paranesi is the January read for the Cozy Club, moderated by Stephanie at Stephanie Bookish on here. It's actually the January and February. She's doing bi-monthly reads, which I kind of like. And Boulder is the January read for Tia Chu's book club, moderated by Tia Chu. And as I said, I got 2 new books this week. The first is Onyx Storm by Rebacca Yarros. This is a book I reserved quite some time ago. Special edition. It's sprayed edges. It says limited, but it seems to me it's not very limited because they sold zillions of them. I do have to complete Iron Flame before I read this book. This is the latter part of January, halfway through February, read for Booked and Busy, moderated by Jaime at Jaime Falk on here. It's kind of interesting because some people, I think including Jaime herself, read this book in like 2 days. It's 500 pages. There is an incredible amount of activity in that book club talking about this book. I'm going to be way behind that, but I do need to complete Iron Flame first. Hopefully I'll be able to complete Iron Flame and then read this book by the deadline, which I think is February 14th for that book club. And the second book I got this week is Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. It is, in fact, autographed. You can see here. celebrity autograph, but an autograph nevertheless. I mentioned last week about a Barnes & Noble virtual event I took part in, which was Grady Hendrix. I thought he was going to read from this book, but he actually read the history of witches. A lot of it was people who were thought to be witches and persecuted for it. In the current times, there was some people who did think they were witches. But I haven't read a Grady Hendrix book yet. He's a noted author. I do have the Final Girl Support Group by him on a Nook book, but I haven't read it yet. So this book here, I suppose I slipped a little bit on my trying to not buy any new books. This wasn't really an exception I gave. But I have a bigger exception I'm going to talk about. I did recently go to a Barnes & Noble and I bought 8 books, so that's a bigger exception to it. But I don't go to bookstores that much, and when I do, I'm going to buy books. I may have to even relax my rules a little more on that because I don't know if I can continue doing it. Next, I'm just going to talk about a couple of Wobbles I'm working on. Had some problems with our internet this week. Had some really cold weather, possibly that played into it, but there were several days it just wasn't working very well. Ended up buying an upgraded package, a higher bit rate. So hopefully that takes care of the problem. It's going to cost me more, but if it works, it's worth it. But I normally like to watch the Wobbles videos on my laptop. I could watch them on my phone, but I just don't like doing that. So without the internet, I decided to use the Wobbles book to make the first set of Wobbles in the book. Here's the book. I talked about it before. And the ones I decided to try making are Pyrus and Lee, the pairs. Here you can see kind of what they're supposed to look like. I've done over 20 Wobbles, and there's always leftover yarn and there's leftover parts. Like they always provide an extra eye. There's a lot of leftovers, so I wanted to use it, and that's one of the reasons I got this book. I didn't have the body of these pairs is supposed to be yellow. I didn't actually have enough yarn for that, and as I said, I want to use the yarn I have. I don't want to buy new yarn. So here's like the first one. I started with yellow, then I went to orange because it's close. Have the eyes. I still got to put stuff on the head. There's like a stem and a leaf on the head. And I also started the second one. This one I got this far. This is all orange so far, and I'll eventually, and I'm in the process of changing to tan. These colors are just the ones I get that are the closest to yellow. I also did some more work on what I talked about in a previous video, probably my last video. Tiny skis. This is day 6 of the Wobbles Advent calendar. And I just got a little further on these. These are skis, and I created and attached the bindings. They're not the greatest, but they're all right. It's kind of, some of these small parts, it's kind of hard to work them. Another thing I did this week is I watched 2001: A Space Odyssey. I'd seen this movie years ago, probably more than once, but it had been quite a long time since I watched it. And I watched this movie because Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading and Jason at Old Blues Chapter and Verse are doing a series. They got a book called A Whole Life in 12 Movies by Catherine Norris and Gareth Higgins. And what they do is they watch the movie, then they read the commentary on the book. They read the commentary from the book about that movie, then they discuss it. I'm not sure I'm going to watch all the movies that they're going to talk about, but because I watched 2001 years ago and I wanted to watch it again, so I did. Then I later watched their video, which was quite interesting. They did say that the book actually has more than 12 movies. I think they said 14. And I forgot to mention when I talked about the books I got, I also actually did buy this book, the Kindle version of it, and possibly end up being a mistake because Kelly and Jason were not complimentary about what the book said about 2001. They didn't think too highly of what the people said about it. But we'll see. Maybe tentatively I can watch at least some of the movies that they discuss. I'll watch their videos anyway because I like the discussion. Hopefully I can get to the movies that they talk about. Buying this book does really stay within my requirements for read what you own, because I gave myself the option to buy books that ideally borrow, but if not buy them, that are for readathons. And I know I said that this is another readathon that I'm loosely going to do, but it'll just be like kind of how I feel as I go along. But their discussion is quite interesting. I will include their video in the description of this video. It does have spoilers, but it was quite interesting. One thing I will say about that movie is that 2001 is that it came out in '68, and I was really impressed watching it. That the sets and stuff in space, the spaceships and stuff like that, it really didn't look dated. Like, if I was to watch, say, old Star Trek episodes, I think I would find that the stage and the Enterprise and stuff kind of dated. But this, I didn't think it was dated at all. I thought that we're now like, if I do the math right, 48 years later. And I thought it holds up well. So I quite enjoyed seeing the movie again. As with books, I don't often watch movies more than once, but I wanted to do it before I watched their video. Other than that, as I said, we had some really cold weather. I just did normal stuff. Walking at the mall, going out to eat a few places. Just my normal stuff. Watching a lot of YouTube videos. I did do a tag video, New Year, New Me, and New Year, Same Old Me. That was basically the title of it. I combined those two tags in one video. I'd be interested in knowing how your reading week went. Are there any books that you particularly enjoyed you'd like to let me know about? If so, please reply in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, please subscribe, please hit the bell to get notified when I upload future videos. I hope you have a wonderful reading week, and I hope you have a wonderful week in general.